There's a single paragraph which fits Mike Warren to a T. It goes like this: do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the places you can, for all the people you can, for as long as ever you can. John Wesley. That's a perfect description of this really gentle, self-effacing, humble man with great power to do good, who's used the power for good his whole life.
Mike Warren grew up in small-town Auburn, Alabama, making him an Auburn man long before he graduated in 1968 from the university.
For me, Auburn was a fabulous place to grow up. I'm the guy that at age 10 had a Birmingham newspaper out, could ride my bike a mile and a little bit to town, roll my 32 papers, and then come back to the neighborhood and throw those papers and know my neighbors and my friends and know which ones I had trouble collecting 50 cents a week from.
Mike left Auburn with a deep love and respect for the university, and more importantly, with the love of his life, Ann.
Without a doubt, the best thing that happened when I was at Auburn was when I got to the 6th grade, Ann's dad, a Methodist minister, came to town and brought her with him. So she and I were in Mrs. McCree's room together, and I'll tell you this, square dancing on Friday afternoons can lead to a wonderful life.
I know folks in Auburn like to talk about the Gus bus, but we got on the Mike Warren bus long before it was ever cool. And the neat thing about Mike's bus is everybody sits at the front.
I first met Mr. Warren when I was in Operation Assist, which was a program implemented by Alagasco in the mid-1980s to weatherize the homes of low-income and elderly customers. One of the things that he left with me was the importance of being a man of character, of integrity, really caring about people and making a difference in people's lives. He's a man about church and family and friends. And so that means a lot to me. When I pray today, I think about him because those are the things that I try to focus on each and every day.
Mike distinguished himself as a great leader with his tenure as president of Alagasco and later with Energen, but his career was far from over.
As I was looking at retiring from Energen and Alabama Gas, Ann, my wife of more than 45 years, said, you need to think about what it is that you want to commit your time, your energy, and your resources to. That's been an important part of what I've done in the last 7 years now at Children's of Alabama. One of the things that was high on that list was what might I be able to do to help in the overall care of kids in Alabama.
Mike's first day on the job, his office is on the 6th floor of the hospital. He sees the helicopter, our critical care transport helicopter, coming towards him, flies over him and lands on the roof. He's the CEO. He says, I'm Mike Warren. I say I'm going to serve, I'm going to serve. So he decides he's going to go serve the helicopter. So he uses his fancy new executive CEO key and works the elevator and just zips up to the roof, hops off. Right about that time, the critical care transport team hops off the helicopter with this very, very ill little baby. And I'm not sure what exactly Mike expected to happen, but he describes it as shoved out of the way with something like, out of the way, bud, and rushed past him right down the stairs with the baby, right? And so he was apparently stunned by that experience, because if you're Mike Warren, you haven't been shoved aside a lot. Their version of that story is they did shove him aside. It was all accurate, except for the fact that about 10 minutes after they had gotten the baby where they were, and they asked who was the guy in the suit with the good hair on the roof, and they said, what's the new CEO? Of course, they saw a career-limiting move. And so they started, for the next month or so, flying the helicopter from the other direction, so Mike wouldn't see them landing on the roof for fear he'd come back up there. They thought they were going to get fired.
He's a very strategic thinker, so you can call him and ask for a decision, and he immediately understands the short-term and the long-term implications of the advice he's giving you and the decision that needs to be made without a whole lot of information.
He'll cut up with the maintenance crew in the morning, the surgeons in the afternoon, me, executives, photographers, everything is the same with him. He is just a good man, and if you tease him, he's going to tease you back. I love that about him.
He not only had a very successful career, but did not retire, went on to work in a field in which he brought a very unique skill set that allowed him to not only change the skyline of Birmingham, but to provide leadership to an institution that is so important to so many families and to this community in a time of tremendous change.
That's his strength. He has the ability to articulate a vision that the group shares, and then to give everybody an opportunity to participate in realizing that vision.
I'm not a physician. I'm not a hospital administrator by training. And so understanding and knowing the strengths of others and utilizing those strengths is a key. One of the things that I think is also important, very, very important, is knowing when to talk and knowing when to listen. And that was clearly true for me at Alabama Gas and Energen, and even more true in capital letters, if you will, at Children's.
If Mike Warren were to call me tonight and say, meet me at Elmwood Cemetery and bring a shovel, I'd get out of bed, get dressed, get my shovel, and be out there, because I know that we would be about doing something good. And we were going to be about doing something that was going to have an impact on the community. He wouldn't have called me in the middle of the night if it wasn't important. And we were going to be about making something great happen.
I think instilled in me and my five younger brothers from an early age, were do the right thing, even when nobody was looking. And the other was get in the darn ball game, get involved, be a part, do what you can. And those two things really have been guides for me during my career.
There is something very special about being a part of the Auburn family, and that something is exemplified in so many beautiful ways.
When I was going through a hard time in my life here at Auburn, Mike stepped forward, and he was a friend when I needed to be a friend. A good example of what an Auburn man ought to be was Mike Warren, and I'll always appreciate him being there when I needed someone there. So I thank you tonight, Mike, and I congratulate you.
Auburn should be extraordinarily proud that a son of Auburn, a graduate of Auburn, parent, faculty members of Auburn, represents the university so profoundly. I mean, he's having as much impact on the healthcare of children in this state now and for generations to come than anybody else, as much as anybody else, and he's not a doctor.